December 21st, 2012. It's a date that's gotten an enormous amount of attention lately, especially among those who believe it's some sort of doomsday. But where does that come from? Why do some people believe it signifies a cataclysm? We've come to the jungles of Central America to try to learn the origins of this prophecy. We're going back to the beginning to try to find out if the end may really be at hand.
Our around-the-world investigation follows three men with three different points of view, joined only in their quest to find the truth behind 2012. Robert Schock, Richard C. Hoagland, and John Major Jenkins. Jenkins has come to Central America, where the ancient Maya once lived, to search for new evidence among the ruins. Evidence that he believes will show what the calendar really means.
Buenas tardes. Me llamo Juan, es mi amigo Enrique. ¿Podrán decirnos por dónde están?
Sí, aquí en las ruinas.
There's carved monuments in this direction. All right, muy bien.
But the Maya weren't the only ones who pointed to 2012 as no ordinary year.
Whether we're talking about the Egyptian or the Mayans, whether we're talking about Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus, all of them, as different as they appear from one another, they're all talking about a time in history. What were they trying to tell us? Why was it so important for them to convey this message to us?
The Mayans seem to be the only ones that pointed specifically to 2012, but other past civilizations have talked about the end of time, the calamity during the event of celestial events. And that is what bothers me, because if you have 3 or 4 ancient civilizations who apparently never communicated with each other, talking about similar things, similar events, they could be right.
There's little consensus about what precisely will happen in 2012 or why. For some 2012 believers, it's all tied to a phenomenon they say occurs once every 26,000 years, in which the Earth, the winter solstice sun, and the center of the Milky Way are all aligned. Interpreting what that alignment will mean is where some of the controversies lie. For Jenkins, the event doesn't mean cataclysm. He believes it will usher in the dawn of a new age.
Is there some kind of unknown science behind galactic alignments that we should be looking at? Well, I guess the short answer is that we don't really yet know. But the fact is that the Maya were intending their 2012 date to target this alignment process, and they thought about it as a transformation and renewal.
But not everyone is so optimistic about 2012. Some, in fact, do foretell a global doomsday, because they say cataclysms occur in cycles. And the last time this 26,000-year cycle ended, the Earth was headed towards a major climatic shift. Scientists pegged the beginning of the Ice Age to around 25,000 years ago. Richard Hoagland is among those who foresee disaster ahead. Hoagland's 2012 prediction isn't based on a galactic alignment, but rather on theoretical physics. He's come to Central America to gather scientific data he believes could prove the Maya sought to warn us of a cataclysm.
The readings we're getting are a good news, bad news scenario. It means that when the Maya foretell that history comes in cycles, that there are periods of destruction at the end of these ages, we need to take that very seriously.
Hoagland is a controversial writer and researcher who is widely known for his assertions about life on Mars, and in particular, the face on Mars. Hoagland's theory about what could happen in 2012 is that the Earth's rotational axis will reorient, setting off a catastrophic chain of events.
The worst case scenario, we have this 30,000-foot high wall of water racing around the world from the oceans. When the planet tips over, it sweeps over every continent and mountain, and it scours them absolutely clean.
But that's just the beginning. Massive earthquakes obliterate our cities. Mountains collapse, and the world's supervolcanoes all erupt simultaneously. Essentially, humanity would be wiped off the planet. While some predict disaster in 2012 and others see rebirth, still others are envisioning something else entirely. Simply nothing out of the ordinary will happen.
I don't think there's anything to 2012 beyond the year after 2011 and the year before 2013. The world will go on and nothing in particular will happen out of the background noise of stuff always happening.
Michael Shermer is the publisher of Skeptic magazine and is investigating the various claims about what will happen in 2012.
Hundreds and hundreds of predictions have been made about the end of the world. Not one of them has come true. What are the chances that 2012 is the one? Not good.
Hollywood is adding its voice to the 2012 frenzy as well, with a string of big-screen epics. Among them, Roland Emmerich's film simply titled 2012. In the movie, massive waves ravage the planet, triggering a global catastrophe. The film's trailer asks the question, how would the governments of our planet prepare 6 billion people for the end of the world? The answer, they wouldn't. For Hoagland, the plot of this fictional movie hits eerily close to home. He spent the last 30 years compiling evidence of what he believes is a government conspiracy to hide just this sort of vital information from the public.
I believe the government, not only the United States, but the governments of the world, most of the major governments, have for at least the last 60 years known this was coming, decided it was real, got extremely concerned, and the entire world that we have lived through over the last 60 years is a direct result of them trying to do something about it and not tell anyone what they were doing.
To uncover the truth behind the 2012 phenomenon, we must go back in time, from Noah's flood to the legend of Atlantis. It's evident from the very beginning, our ancestors have been focused on the end.
Our very first recorded story that comes from ancient Babylonia, recorded on clay tablets, Epic of Gilgamesh, talks about prominently a flood that ends the whole world. So here, the very first human story that we have evidence for talks about the end of the world.
That's the thing that people keep forgetting, is that basically every ancient culture has a prophetic system that talks about end times.
These stories tend to link up to great natural disasters. And I think that the power of having lived through some of these great cataclysms is likely to be encoded in these ancient stories of the end of time.
Is it possible that in 2012 the planet will experience a global catastrophe like the ones in these stories? Could these stories have been left behind by survivors of past cataclysms to warn us about the future?
Myths are not made up in space. They're made up in time by human beings, and they're told from human experience. So I think we'd be naive to think that there wasn't some reflection of historical realities in the ancient myths.
Scattered across planet Earth are the physical scars of past cataclysms. The Earth has survived them all. But the big question remains, could we?
If we look back through geological history, we find evidences of catastrophic changes in climate. These have been related to meteor impacts, to changes in outputs from the sun, to massive volcanic explosions, to the changing of the Earth from an ice age to an interglacial, where sea levels were rising at greater than 2 inches per year. In the last 10,000 years, we've had a relatively stable climate, and civilizations have flourished. But civilization has never had to withstand a catastrophe.
Not everyone believes the Maya predicted catastrophe in 2012.